Hey YouTube, today we're going to be looking at a very budget-friendly revolver. We're going to be looking at a Heritage Rough Rider. And before we go any further with this, I'm going to show the whole YouTube world that this little Heritage Rough Rider revolver has no Rough Rider ammunition in it. So everybody is safe to finish watching this video and nobody's going to get hurt. That's always our goal here, is not to hurt anybody. So what we have here, this is what they call a Heritage Rough Rider 22 caliber single action revolver. And the reason I say it's just a 22 caliber because this particular model comes with two separate cylinders. You have one for 22 long rifle and you have one for 22 Magnum. And the one that we have in here today for showing purposes is the 22 Magnum revolver. Why not put the bad boy in it? I did not bring out the 22 long rifle cylinder because they are exactly the same, and what difference does it make? I'm just going to show you that it does have the 22 Magnum option, so you can see that right on the side. So I'll show you a few of the close-ups of this thing. This is Heritage Rough Rider 22 caliber. Has some warning stuff written here. It has where the gun was manufactured and who it was manufactured by. And on the other side, you just got some warnings and a serial number. Now, I'm going to tell you this is probably one of the best buys that you can have. This is probably one of the most inexpensive handguns that you can buy in today's time. And for what you get and what you pay, this is a really good value, in my opinion. If you look, these grips are really nice. It's a really nice laminate wood grips. And they have a ton of aftermarket ones you can buy for these things. The finish is not real bad either. Some type of blue finish on it. It really looks like actually pretty well for the price point this thing's at. And the reason I like this little thing is it is a very close replica of a Colt Single Action Army, one of the most iconic handguns that was ever made. The gun that won the West, the Peacekeeper, Peacemaker, and I've heard it all. But so what this gun does is something that a lot of these little single action replica guns, I call them replicas because they're very similar to a Colt Single Action Army, and I'm in no way saying that this is a Colt or the quality of a Colt, but it's just very close to the way it functions and the way it looks. One thing that the single action armies used to do is they used to have 4 clicks when you cocked the hammer. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Well, it didn't do it. I think it was all the way there. 1, 2, 3, 4. It does 4 clicks. So the Colt Single Action Army people used to say if your Colt Single Action Army is working correctly, it's just spell the word Colt. So we're going to C-O-L-T. Spells out Colt. Even though it's not a Colt, folks. But anyway, we'll look at some close-ups of it here, and it's just a really, really well-made firearm for the price point on it. And the way these things work here is you pull the hammer back one little click, you open the loading gate up, and you press on this little button right here, and you pull this pin out, if I can do this on camera, and the whole cylinder comes out. And this is, like I said, this is a 22 Magnum cylinder, so you can, if you want to change out the cylinders, it only takes a couple seconds. If you wanted to put the 22 long rifle one back in, and to put it in, you open the lift gate back up. This thing just rocks in here, and you take the pin and you push the little button here. I always fumble around doing stuff like this on camera. Push the little button and it slides all back in, and we're back in business here. So trigger pull on this thing, let's see here, it's not really a bad trigger, and it's a single action revolver, so most of the time single action is always a really good trigger on it. Difference in this and most modern revolvers is you don't have the double action capability. So when you pull this trigger, it's not going to go off. You have to cock the hammer back every time to make the weapon function, unless you're Alec Baldwin. He had a single action pistol that just seemed to magically fire by itself, but well, that's a story we'll go into another day, maybe. Anyway, so one unique thing about this thing is this thing's got a safety on it. So I'm going to pull this back here, and if I push this down, you notice the little red comes up. That's when it's on fire. So if you look straight down here, this thing actually goes and makes contact with the firing pin. The firing pin's a frame-mounted fire pin, which is different than a Colt single-action Army. But the hammer makes contact with that firing pin and makes it go off. If you put the safety on here, which this will be safety on without the red showing, it actually puts a little block here. And if you'll see, there's a firing pin, or the hammer blocks, where it will not make contact with the firing pin, so the gun will not go off. Usually the old Colt single-action Armies didn't have a safety on them, but that's because of new manufacturing stuff, regulations that they have to do and everything. And it's kind of cool for beginning shooters and stuff like that. You can feel a little safe that they have a little thumb safety right here to turn it on and off. I think it's kind of cool. So if you look here, if we have it off safe, we go to fire it, that's how far it goes in. If we take the safety off, the hammer goes all the way in. So you see there's not much of a gap right here, but when the safety's on, it's more of a gap. And that's what keeps it from going off. But anyway, this is a really neat little firearm, for just like a little cowboy shooting or a little plinking outside, or if you take your kids or grandkids or whatever out, they can target shoot with this thing. And I've actually hit a couple things with these things. I've actually hit a target or two with this thing before, so it is somewhat accurate. If you can pick up the sight picture, pretty much almost any little handgun will be accurate to an extent. Nothing wrong with it. I did a short video on it before showing some close-ups, just some scan overs of it, and people seem to like it, so I figured I'd do a little video on it, show people what a little budget single-action revolver looks like. Of course, the way these things function is you open it up, you pull the hammer back one click, and you just rotate it around, and that's how you load it. You pull it back here, and you load them one at a time, one round at a time. It holds 6. Now, a lot of these people on the old Colts single actions, they would only load them with 5 rounds, because back in the cowboy days, this thing would have a firing pin on the hammer, and it didn't have all this fancy safety mechanism, and people were actually riding their horse with these things, and then they'd go over a bump and the gun would go off. And there's been people that's killed their horses and stuff like that, shot themselves in the leg, so they would only carry 5 rounds. And what I don't understand, these modern cowboy shooters and stuff, they only load them with 5 rounds because of that. And that makes no sense. They're in a controlled environment. They can't control the firearm. In a controlled environment, they probably shouldn't be messing with firearms. But I load it down with 6 rounds when I shoot it. But yeah, you just open this lift gate, pull the hammer back, half cocked, and you just rotate the cylinder around. And the way you get rid of the spent shell casings is you take it and you open the load gate up, and this is the ejector rod that just goes through and ejects the shells out one at a time. So, well, let me see if I can do this. So you go to the next round, eject, next round, eject, and you have to eject them out. It's not a fast process, but it was breaking technology when this came out, because it was a repeating revolver that you did not have to load one shell in at a time like the old flintlock or black powder rifles or anything. So this actually functions exactly like a Colt single-action Army. The little Ruger Wranglers, I've had those in the past. That's what this is compared to. It's not quite as closely related to the old Colt single-action Armies as this one, so I prefer this one over like a Ruger Wrangler. I'm not saying the Ruger Wrangler is a bad gun, but this thing's more closely related to a Colt in functionality and looks. So I'd rather have this one. They're both very expensive. This one's a little less expensive than a Ruger, but in my opinion, it doesn't look like it's made any worse. I mean, it's actually a really solid, well-built firearm. And for the price, I mean, you cannot beat this. But anyway, folks, let me know if you have any questions on this little Heritage Rough Rider 22 caliber single action revolver. And if you have any questions, you let me know. I'm sure not an expert on these. I don't know a lot about them. I just know they make a lot of stuff for them, like grips and stuff like that. But anyway, folks, thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.